Lahore Grammar School, Quetta, lesson by Faiza Shah for grade 7. Competent is comprehension. And the topic, the day they stayed alone, has been taken from your reader. Tell me a story. Now, it's a wonderful story. It's actually part of a collection, a book collection. The author's name is Laura Ingalls, and she wrote many books, but this is one of her collection called Little House. It's all about her own life. So the incident in the story is quite true. The character of the story are Ma, she's the mother, Pa is the father. They have three girls. One of them is little Carrie, who went away with Ma and Pa. There is Laura, the middle child, who's telling the story. She's the writer as well. Mary is the eldest one, and she believes she's in charge when Ma and Pa are away. They have a cow named Spot. They have oxen. Their names are Pete and Bright. They have a faithful dog named Jack, and a Norwegian neighbor who works for their neighbor, the Nelsons. His name is Johnny Johnson. Summary of the lesson. Now, summer was gone and winter was coming. Pa must make a trip to the town in Minnesota to buy the stock for winter. Ma carries Carrie with her. Carrie is the name of the youngest child. So she must take Carrie with her because obviously she's too young to stay at home alone. So she made Carrie a new dress, and she looked like a little pink rose in her new dress and beautiful golden curls. Ma and Pa promised the girls who were staying home that they will be back by the sunset, and off they went. Jack knew he must stay close to the girls when Pa is away. That morning, the girls played by the creek. It's not Greek, it's creek. Among the rushes, and later at noon, they had corn and molasses along with milk for lunch. They washed their tin cups and put them away. So these are some good girls who know how to keep the house clean and all well managed when their parents are away. Um, then Laura wanted to play on the big rocks, but Mary wanted to stay in the dugout. That is their house. She tried to talk Laura into it, but they ended up in an argument. And here you can see that Laura is running. She's playing with Jack. And here you can see in blue dress, Mary. She's quite a serious girl. Laura said that she can do what she want, and as she started running, she looked at Jack, who stood stiff. Now, she was expecting Jack to run after her, but as soon as she started running, as she looked at Jack, he was there standing quite still, looking at the creek. Laura looked at the creek and screamed, Mary! Now, why did she scream? Because she saw that the cattle were all around Pa's haystack. Do you see the haystack here in the picture, the one above? Yes, that's the haystack, and they are kept to feed the cattle. So the cattle were all around Pa's haystack. They were tearing into stacks with their horns, gouging out hay, eating it, and trampling over it. Both the girls were worried now as they knew that winter is near, and that's what they had for Pete, Bright, and Spot. Jack knew what to do. He ran growling to drive those cattle away. Laura yelled at Mary to come and help, but Mary was afraid of the long horns and the big cattle. But Laura took a long stick and started running after the cattle. So you see, Laura is quite very brave. She started running after the cattle, although she was also afraid. She was a little girl. Mary somehow got control of her fear and she started helping as well, but they could not chase the cattle away from the haystack. The cattle ran round and round in between the stacks, jostling and bawling, tearing off hay and trampling it. So the girls are worried because the haystack they needed for the winter for their cattle. Laura was now very hot and dizzy. Her hair was unbraided and it was all over her face now. Her throat was rough from yelling, but she kept running and yelling, waving her stick after the cattle. And finally, Laura, Mary, and Jack managed to chase the cattle away. Away into the prairie grass. Here you can see the cattle are all out of the haystack, and now they are in the big green field that's called prairie. After all that hassle, Johnny Johnson rose out of the prairie. He was rubbing his eyes. It seems like it that he's been sleeping all this time. Laura and Mary looked at him in amazement, and they were very angry. So Laura screeched at Johnny to wake. She asked him to. She screeched. She screeched means in a very shrill voice. She yelled at him and she said, "You need to wake up and take care of the cattle." Unfortunately, the boy didn't understand a word because he was unable to speak English. The only language that he spoke was Norwegian. The girls were glad to drink at the spring. They were glad to be in their quiet house. They stayed in the house for the rest of the day, resting. The sun was almost down, and the girls now wished to see their parents and little Carrie. So they sat waiting with Jack on the grassy top of their house. The lower the sun went, the more attentive Jack's ears were. Finally, Jack turned one ear that way and then the other way. Then he looked at Laura and waggled his tail. He was sure that the wagon was coming and that they all stood and watched till it came out of the prairie. Just then the girls realized that the wagon was coming awfully fast. They could see Pa struggling to keep both the oxen from turning to the creek, but could not do it. He couldn't stop them. The big oxen scalloped nearer and nearer to the steep edge. They were all going over the wagon, Ma, Carrie. They were all going to fall because Pa was running along with the wagon. Pa shouted and struck Bright's head with all his might, and luckily Bright actually slowed down. Laura ran screaming while Jack jumped at Bright's nose. Then the wagon crashed against the stable and everything was still. Carrie started crying. Pa helped Ma and Carrie out of the wagon. Luckily, they were all fine. Then Pa explained that as soon as Bright saw the stable, he wanted his supper and that's why he was rushing towards it. But all's well that ends well. The girls helped bring the packages inside while Pa took the oxen in the stable so that they can have their food. Later, Mary helped Ma in the kitchen for dinner for supper while Laura helped milking Spot. She brought milk inside for supper, and the supper was ready. At supper, the girls told their parents all about the cattle and that they got into the haystacks and how they drove them away. Pa and Ma were so proud of their girls. After supper, the girls sat with their father. Pa brought them green and red striped candies. They were maple sugar colored and flat on one side. The girls enjoyed their candies. After the dishes were done, Mary and Laura sat on Pa's knees while Ma stayed inside with Carrie because obviously Carrie needs to go sleep. While Pa and the girls were enjoying the stars, Laura said that she likes wolves better than the cattle. Now, this is something she had in her mind. So Pa explained her that cattle are more useful. Laura, why would you say that? But Laura she wanted to stick to what she said, although she was not contradicting. She was not trying to be disrespectful towards her father, but she just said what she thought, and she kind of stick to it. She believed that the wolves are better than cattle. Well, anyways, Pa laughed. He smiled and said that we're going to have a good team of horses soon, and he meant only after they will have a wheat crop because they are not so rich, so they cannot buy horses. So what they'll do is that obviously when they have a wheat crop, they're going to sell that and buy some horses. So the next time, if the cattle are out of control, they can use the horses. They can sit on the horses and they don't really have to run physically after them, right? It was a beautiful story, wasn't it? Well, the question and answers. Let's see. Why do you think Laura Ingalls Wilder remembered this day? In what way the characters in the story showed courage? Why was it so important for Mary and Laura to chase the cattle away from the haystack? What would have happened to the family if the haystack had been destroyed? Write about a time when you have stayed alone while your parents were out. So these are some 5 question answers that you need to do by yourself. There are words for meaning and sentence making. It's prairie, gouging, trampling, jostling, bawling, panting, wiggle, pounced, and crumbly. Find the meanings and make sentences. It's going to be fun. It's a true story, so you see how little girls helped saving the haystacks. Well, until we meet again, boys and girls, We see you back in school, inshallah, soon. But till then, you stay safe, right? Take care. Bye bye.